Good afternoon, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Welcome back and nice to have you here. Today is September 13, 2021, so I got some news to share with you. And I would start with a short video which shows young Ethiopian soldiers chanting, dancing with Jafar Ali. Jafar Ali was a journalist, worked on a radio station for a long time. Now is a Prosperity Party supporter. So I want to show you that Ethiopia accusing TDF using child soldiers, and Ethiopia blaming the global community for not condemning TDF for using child soldiers, but itself using, I am sure if you will see on the video, these are very young kids, getting ready in uniform, in Ethiopian uniform, and dancing with Jafar Ali. So it's Ethiopia is accusing TDF and blaming the United States and the Western nations, for not condemning TDF, claiming that, but itself is not having clean hand in this accusation. So let's listen, see this very short video, then I'll go to the other updates and other news. So pay attention on the how young these kids are. That's Jafar Ali. Look the kids when they come here. The one in his arm on the right side. Look, this is the girl dancing, and this guy, I'm sure it's very young, less than 18 years. You can see from the back even. Too many young kids. Too many. So that's all I want to show you. So it needs a closer look and a further investigation about those children dancing, jumping, and getting ready to fight in this war. So this should be investigated by appropriate body to see if possible to get the documents to verify. I am sure these are very young kids, very young kids, less than 18, could be 16 or 15, but it needs further investigation, and it's also, uh, uh, you know, put a light on Ethiopia, accusing others for using maybe claiming TDF using child soldiers. So this should be verified, and it should be investigated. I shared it from Facebook. So Jafar Ali is now a Prosperity Party member. He's advocating for war. He's encouraging youngsters, instead of going to college, he's encouraging them to fight. He's not fighting, but he's encouraging them to go to the war and engage in this bloody war. So I have other news to read and a couple of videos to share at the end. The update on the war, the fighting still continue. It's heavy, it is bloody. And TDF, Tigray Defense Force, renewed their operation against the Amhara region, and even recapturing some cities like Sokota and Wegaltanai, and other cities, and even confiscating heavy weapons and Kalashnikov and other weapons from Ethiopia Defense Force and from militias, Amhara militia and others. So the heavy war is still going on. The Gondar front, Wallo front, and other areas. So very heavy. And there is also a report, Eritrean forces engage in this war, helping the Amhara militia and the Ethiopian side against TDF. So they are not withdrawing, they are still there. They are not listening to the United States, they are not listening to the Western nation. They are actively in operation in this war. So TDF is claiming so many victories, even so it's very hard to verify independently, like destroying heavy tanks and artilleries from Ethiopia, and capturing so many soldiers, destroying thousands and thousands of militias and Ethiopian Defense Forces. So very heavy war, very bloody, and has no ending sight. As you can see from this video, even young teenagers are encouraged to fight. Older women are training, older men are training to go to the war instead of enjoying their retirement. All the resources are heading to the northern front and other parts for in this conflict. The other one is OLF is also continuing its operation in Oromia region. Is continuing its fight for freedom of Oromo and Oromia because Oromos are under attack. There is no justice in Oromia. As you might already know, so many thousands of Oromos are in jail. So many prominent Oromo politicians are in jail, like Baqqala Garba, Hamza Borana, Colonel Gammachuu Ayyaana, Abdii Raggasa, and so many known and unknown Oromos are in jail without due process, no legal system. Just by the order of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, they can be in jail for many years without any legal system. The justice system is broken. The legal system is broken. These people are suffering. Some of them tortured, some of them killed, taken from the prison in Oromia, killed, without any court proceeding. So the OLF is fighting to end these atrocities and others, and to bring justice and freedom in Oromia, and freeing Oromia from tyranny in Ethiopia. So the movement is continuing, and it's very tough to live under Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed is very brutal. He's using undercover operatives and uncovered operatives against Oromos. You saw so many killings in Oromia. The lawyer for Oromo political prisoners, last time they killed him. Hachalu Hundessa killed, no justice, nothing. So many killed and dragged on the street. So they can do whatever they want to do at this time. No legal system. Nobody control them. So OLF should be encouraged. Oromos should join it in their fight for freedom. They have to support OLF with everything they can, financially, in thought, in prayer, everything, in joining the army, because the cause is very essential to end the atrocities, to end all these criminalities in Oromia. So it should be encouraged. They are doing good. They are taking cities, towns, and slowly they come in. They are not far from Addis Ababa. So they should be supported. They should be encouraged to end the atrocities in Oromia. And Oromos are not even allowed to celebrate their traditional holidays like Irrecha. Prosperity Party are involved heavily to limit the number of participants, even to restrict the celebration, politicizing. So if the freedom is not achieved, all these things will continue in Oromia. So OLF should be encouraged. All Oromos should speak with one voice and joining OLF or OLA in the fight for freedom, justice, equality in Ethiopia. So that's all the war update. So the war is going on. That's a front, Gondar front, heavy fighting, no end in sight. Let's read the other news items. Thank you again for joining Concerned Citizens Media. Amhara state deploys its forces to neighboring Benishangul Gumuz state. Move follows recent killing of security forces by armed rebels. That's the claim. Amhara special forces were deployed to Bulen Woreda of the Metekel zone in Benishangul Gumuz regional state. Bulen Woreda Communication Bureau announced on September 12. The Communication Bureau said that the special forces from the neighboring Amhara state were welcomed by the residents of Bulen town in Metekel zone, 1 kilometer in the outskirts of the town. The statement added that the local community are expecting the Amhara special forces to work in a spirit of patriotism to return sustainable peace to the area and exterminate messengers of junta and the remnants of the TPLF walking around carrying its ideology and school of thoughts. That's the claim on the government side or Amhara side. On September 9, the Benishangul Gumuz State Security Bureau accused Gumuz armed rebels of killing 5 security forces and 1 Chinese nation in the latest attack in Metekel zone. Earlier in August, an armed group accused by the regional government of belonging to the Gumuz community killed 5 members of local militia in Bulan Warada, which has been the scene of recurring violence that caused the death and displacement of hundreds of civilians. The regional government and the Metekel Zone Integrated Command Post recently announced the finalization of the preparation to take final and decisive measures against TPLF agents operating in Metekel and the Kamashi zones. The warning came after regional government signed a memorandum of understanding in May of this year with an armed group with incentive to integrate members of the armed group into local administration in a bid to bring a lasting solution to the security crisis in the region. The regional government went on to appoint 25 former members of the identified armed group to 2 regional, 3 zonal, and 16 Warada level leadership positions in July. The news of the deployment of Amhara Special Forces comes in the backdrop of on and off tension between authorities of the 2 regional states, particularly over the ownership status of Metekel zone itself, which Amhara officials at the time lay claim on. Tension between the 2 regional states were running high, particularly after the killing of, in April 2019, at least 18 members of the Amhara community in various localities of Metekel zone. In what was described at the time as a retaliation of offensive by armed militia from Amhara region, several dozens members of Gumuz and the Sinasha communities were killed in just 2 days in 3 kabales or localities in Jawi Warada, bordering Benishangul Gumuz regional state in the first week of May 2019. Due to this claim on the ownership status of the Metekel zone itself, officials of the 2 regional states often trade blames against each other, but both were unable to contain the violence, especially in the Metekel zone, which continued to claim the lives of civilians. The tension between the officials of the 2 regional states went up last year in December after the late Abere Adamu, former commissioner of the Amhara Regional State Police Commission, announced that the region's police was requesting the federal government to either be given the responsibility or for the federal government to intervene in Benishangul Gumuz state in order to stabilize growing security crisis in Metekel zone of the region and secure the safety and the security of civilians. Gambir Betish, a resident of Bulan Warada, told Addis Standard that 2 days after the deployment of Amhara Special Forces, the community is yet to tell the outcome. However, he added that things are so far so good. Credit Addis Standard. So they have the expansionist agenda. I said before, I reported on this, the Amharas. So they are claiming Metekel zone as part of the Amhara. Now they are sending their special forces to fight those locals in Metekel and Benishangul Gumuz region. So this is another failure of the central government, allowing regions to fight each other instead of mediating and resolving the conflict. Whether it's a border issue or other issues, the central government should play a major role, but Abiy Ahmed is not playing. This is, another problem uh, the Amhara Special Forces or the Amhara region is not supposed to send its forces, its special forces, into another region. That's not their role when it comes to between two regions. The federal government should have been taken, to ease the tension between the two regions and find a solution about these, claims. So this is wrong. This is another failure. That's why we call on Abiy Ahmed to leave his post. He's not an effective leader. He is sending the country into chaos, into bloodshed, into economic collapse, into isolation. That's why I say we should demand, all Ethiopians demand his removal from power and open up the opportunity for dialogue and reconciliation. So far, uh, he is not resigning, and nobody is demanding. And the Amaras are happy with it. They are supporting. They are behind him with all operations. Maybe they have, understanding, common understanding of Amara's expansion into Benishangul Gumuz region or into Oromia region. This is a challenge. The war has no ending sight. No ending sight, because we have a failed government system in Ethiopia. Ethiopians are suffering due to a failed central government, lack of leadership, and lack of trust, and so many times where concerned citizens media reported, called on him to resign like his predecessor Haile Mariam Desalegn. But he is ready to continue his leadership. He's ready to form his own government again. So we will see. But he is a failure in many fronts. He is not ending the bloodshed. Now the Amaras are going to Metekel zone. More confrontation, more bloodshed in that area. We'll follow and I will report to you. Okay, the next one is a statement by President Joe Biden, and First Lady on the celebration of New Year, Ethiopian New Year, or celebration of Enkutatsh. It is a statement released from White House. I'll read it. Jill and I send our best wishes for a happy new year to all the people of Ethiopia and Eritrea and all those around the world celebrating Enkutatsh, including hundreds of thousands of Americans with Ethiopian or Eritrean heritage. Ethiopian Americans and Eritrean Americans are vital to every aspect of the life of our nation, enriching communities all across the United States. And I know the past year has been difficult for many of you. In addition to the pain and the loss caused by COVID-19, the ongoing conflict in Ethiopia may be directly affecting your families and loved ones. We are all deeply concerned by the reports of violence against civilian population in Ethiopia, and my administration is engaging in robust diplomacy with our partners throughout the region to peacefully resolve conflict in the Horn of Africa. I also recognized and appreciate the direct contribution many of you make to strengthening peace and prosperity in the region as members of the Ethiopian and Eritrean diaspora. The United States has a deep and long-lasting commitment to the people of the Horn of Africa. We will continue to speak out against violence and the inhumane treatment of any group of people, and we will continue our support for addressing humanitarian needs in the region. We believe Ethiopia, a great and diverse nation, can overcome its current divisions and resolve the ongoing conflict beginning with a negotiated ceasefire. Building peace will not be easy, but it can and must begin now with dialogue and by seeking unity in our common humanity. Welcome Addis Ahmed to all those celebrating, and I pray this year, New Year, may usher forth peace, reconciliation, and healing for families and communities across Ethiopia, Eritrea, and worldwide. So that is Joe Biden and First Lady sending a wish for Ethiopians and Eritreans and for dialogue and peaceful settling the issue, reconciliation for the current bloody civil war in Ethiopia. Concerned citizens media appreciate Biden for expressing his wish and for expressing his concern about the civil unrest, civil war in Ethiopia. Uh, some Ethiopians ridiculed this message, rejected this message because of U.S. commitment and for U.S. concern, repeated concern about this conflict. They are not happy, even though they sent this welcoming New Year and Enqutatash in Ethiopia. It should be appreciated. We should appreciate. They didn't say nothing. They say settle. They are warning us repeatedly to settle the conflict through peaceful means, end the bloodshed, release all political prisoners, have a dialogue, have reconciliation. That's the message. But Ethiopians are talking about Ethiopia never been colonized. America is, telling us to eat what to eat for breakfast, what to eat for lunch, blah blah, going around instead of resolving the issue. Now we have too much bloodbath in Ethiopia. Okay. World Food Program receives 5.8 million for air operation in South Sudan. The United Nations World Food Program said it secured 5.9 million to support humanitarian air operation in war-torn South Sudan. The European Union fund will be used to support the United Nations humanitarian air service and the World Food Program-led logistic cluster, a mechanism designed to ensure efficient and effective emergency response in South Sudan. World WFP's country director for South Sudan, Matthew Hollingworth, said United Nations humanitarian air service and the logistic cluster allow humanitarian organizations to reach the most remote area of South Sudan, ensuring that assistance to reach those who need it most. This would not be possible without the support from donors like the European Union, he said in a statement extended to Sudan Tribune. The European Union contribution, World Food Program stated, will help United Nations humanitarian air service to provide air transport service to 30,000 passengers and to transport 480 metric tons of light cargo in support of 290 humanitarian organizations across the country. Over 8 million people reportedly need urgent humanitarian assistance after floods, conflict, and COVID-19 have worsened the situation following earlier years of conflict. WFP said United Nations humanitarian air service remains the only common air service available for the entire humanitarian community in the country. Due to poor infrastructure, seasonal challenges, demographic constraint, and aviation gap, the humanitarian community relies heavily on the WFP-run air service to safely reach areas of operation, WFP said in a release. It added, this service includes transportation of humanitarian cargo, warehousing, operational information management, logistics, preparedness, and representation at decision-making forums. According to the United Nations, South Sudan is currently facing its highest level of food insecurity since its independence, with 60% of the population facing hunger. Credit Sudan Tribune. Sudan, India hold naval drills in Red Sea. Sudanese and Indian navies conducted a joint maritime exercise in the Red Sea near the Sudanese coast, the two countries said on Saturday. The Sudanese warships Abdul Fadil Al-Maz and Al-Malk Nimir took part in the partnership exercise with the Indian naval ship Tabar on Friday, 10 September. The exercise involved multiple activities covering a wide range of naval operations, including coordinated maneuver, replenishment at sea drills, helicopter operations, operations for interdicting suspect vessels at sea, and communication procedures. The exercise enhanced interoperability between the two navies significantly and widened the scope for combined operation against common maritime threats in future, said the Indian Navy. The Sudanese Navy said the bilateral exercise comes within the framework of the Sudanese Army plans, aiming to deepen the exchange of experience with armed forces of brotherly and friendly countries. Last March, Sudan and Saudi Arabia held joint military drills in the Red Sea off the Saudi coast on ways to fight insecurity in the regional water. Credit again, Sudan Tribune. So it's good for the newly forming transitional government in Sudan to have joint military exercise with Saudi Arabia and India and others. So that's the normal duty of the government, to have more friends instead of having more enemies. The U.S. House Speaker Pelosi voiced concern about alleged Saudi torture. U.S. Speaker of the House of Representatives Nancy Pelosi said on Sunday she was deeply concerned about the alleged torture of Saudi aid worker while in detention in Saudi Arabia. The aid worker, Abdurrahman al-Sadah, was detained by Saudi authorities in March 2018 and reported to be sentenced to 20 years in prison followed by a 20-year travel ban, according to an April 6 U.S. State Department statement. He was arrested from the Red Crescent Society office in Riyadh, where he worked. In a tweet, Pelosi, a Democrat, said Congress would monitor his appeal hearing, which she said was on Monday, and all human rights abuses by the regime. Deeply concerned with allegation of torture, in detention of aid worker Abdurrahman al-Sada. His sentencing continues. Saudi Arabia's assault on freedom of expression, Pelosi tweeted. Separately, al-Sadah's sister said his health was getting worse. We are very worried about my brother's safety and health, deteriorating under torture in Saudi detention, while we remain completely deprived of any contact with him, Arij al-Sadah wrote on Twitter. The Saudi embassy in Washington didn't immediately respond to a request for comment on either tweet. Saudi de facto ruler Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has moved to crush dissent while introducing social and economic reform to modernize the kingdom. Saudi authorities have detained senior royals, activists, intellectuals, and clerks. In April statement, Geneva-based advocacy NGO MENA Rights Group said al-Sadah was brought to trial for having run two satirical Twitter accounts and accused of funding terrorism, supporting or sympathizing with Islamic State militia groups, and preparing, storing, and sending messages that would prejudice public order and religious values, as the claim of Saudi Arabia government. The group also said al-Sadah family had learned he was subjected to severe torture in detention, including electric shocks, beatings that caused broken bones, flogging, hanging from the feet, and suspension in stress positions, threats of murder and beheading, insults, verbal humiliation. Credit Reuters news agency. So it's a brutal, very brutal treatment of somebody who is already legally in prison, and sentencing him is heavy, really. Sentencing him for 20 years and banning him for another 20 years not to leave the country. This is very extreme brutality by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for for just simple allegation of this guy. So also they are very, very tough on Ethiopians in Saudi Arabia these days, loading them in a, storing them in a inhumane condition in Saudi Arabia jails, without proper hygiene, without clean water, without food. So the cry of Ethiopians from Saudi Arabia is also alarming. Saudi Arabia is ignoring all humanitarian law and ignoring on religious law. According to the religion, you are not supposed to harm other human beings. They are the center of the Muslim, but they are doing very bad under current leadership, especially on Ethiopians. I don't know why they are very harsh on Ethiopians. They are very bad inhumane treatment of Ethiopians in Saudi Arabia. Children, starving. Women are mistreated, torture in Saudi Arabia prison. Very tough, very tough. And Americans, the United States, and the European Union's Human Rights Watch, they have to pay an extra attention what the Saudi government is doing against immigrants, especially this time on Ethiopians. Especially, I don't have any reason why they are doing this, but they are targeting Ethiopians, targeting especially Oromos. Especially Oromos. The Oromos are crying every day to come out of this torturous, very inhumane treatment in Saudi Arabia. So they are doing very bad thing against their own citizens. They are doing very cruel treatment of Ethiopians at this time for unexplained reason, for unknown reason. Maybe I don't know if the Prosperity Party engaged in this thing. I don't know. I have no proof, but I don't know why they are treating. Never been like this in Saudi Arabia. Never been treated like this. Yes, some deportation is known, but collectively attacking Ethiopians in Saudi Arabia, I never heard before. So, Saudi Arabia, you are doing against your religion. You are doing against humanitarian law. Please stop treating people in that way, please. So, America, the United States, the European Union, United Nations also, they should speak up against these inhumane treatments of humanity in Saudi Arabia. This guy, the guy in power now, Prince Mohammed, I think he was already accused of other brutal crime, but the Biden administration ignored it. The guy, the journalist they killed in Turkey, that's a brutal crime, killing him with acid, burning his, chopping his body. That's inhumane treatment, and America is ignoring that. So that's why now they are abusing all international law against Ethiopians, against the Oromos living in Saudi Arabia, who came, thinking that they can be sheltered there for safety, running away from brutal government in Ethiopia, but they are suffering another worse situation in that country. So Saudi Arabia, if you are listening, please stop these atrocities against immigrants, and the international community, the United States, European Union, Human Rights Commission, UN, you have to speak up against this government so they can follow international guidelines in saving humanity on their land. Okay, the last one. This is also from U.S. State Department press release on the agreement on the formation of a new Lebanese government. That's Lebanese also facing many economic challenges, political challenges, and fire last time, huge explosion. So that's very sensitive area, very unstable country. So this is a press statement. The United States welcomes the announcement the Lebanese leaders have agreed to form a new government under the leadership of Prime Minister designate Najib Mikati, offering hope that urgent action will be taken to address the dire needs and the legitimate aspiration of the Lebanese people. We urge quick approval by the parliament so that this new government can get to work on concrete reform to address Lebanese deteriorating economic situation. This year, the United States has contributed nearly $372 million in humanitarian assistance to the Lebanese people. We stand ready to support the new government with the hard work ahead. So that's a very short statement, supporting the newly formed government. Credit U.S. State Department. So thank you again. That's the reading part. I have very two short videos and conclude today's presentation. There you go. Let's see. There we go. There we go.
The US Department of Justice is suing the state of Texas over a new bill that bans the majority of abortions. The law took effect last week after the Supreme Court failed to block it.
After the Supreme Court allowed Texas Senate Bill 8 to take effect, I said that the Justice Department was evaluating all options to protect the constitutional rights of women and other persons. After a careful assessment of the facts and the law, the Justice Department has filed a lawsuit against the state of Texas.
Well, the Texas legislation does ban abortions after a fetal heartbeat is detected, usually after 6 weeks of pregnancy, meaning that up to 90% of such procedures would be in violation of the bill. Protests have sprung up again across America against this bill, although the governor of Texas says that the decision would actually save lives.
Our Creator endowed us with the right to life, and yet millions of children lose their right to life every year because of abortion. In Texas, we work to save those lives. The Texas legislature ensures that the life of every unborn child who has a heartbeat will be saved from the ravages of abortion.
We spoke to Marnie Halassa, a lawyer and former candidate for the New York City Council, about this, and she told us that the enactment of the bill could have been avoided altogether.
Now, under the concept of states' rights, states are allowed to regulate abortion rights, but they cannot come up with conditions that actually ban abortion, which this Texas law does. But I think there's actually a more important story going on, and it's actually a political story, which is that this didn't have to happen. And the reason why it's happening is that the Democrats genuinely do not want to codify abortion rights into federal law. Since 2013, the Democrats could have protected this federal right for women to have an abortion with federal legislation, but instead, the party has consistently and deliberately opted for gridlock, and it sends a message that no matter how hard voters work to elect Democrats, nothing will fundamentally change. And this is what they want. It's intentional, and again, we should all be outraged.
Okay, that's RT. I think I have one more. Let's see. There we go.
WFP said that further cuts may be inevitable if funding levels continue to drop, calling for an additional $154 million to provide food assistance in the next 4 months. Mr. Lacroix is back in New York, and we hope to have him here in the flesh, I think, on Friday. Moving on to Ethiopia, the World Health Organization's logistics hub in Dubai has now delivered 85 metric tons of life-saving medical supplies to Ethiopia. This was the largest single shipment of humanitarian cargo to date airlifted by our WHO colleagues at the hub. The supplies includes medicines, trauma and emergency surgery kits, consumables, equipment. Cholera kits were also flown by charter donated by the United Arab Emirates, to whom we are grateful, and that landed in Addis Ababa, and it will address the urgent needs of more than 150,000 people. The shipment to Ethiopia wrapped up a historic week for WHO's Dubai logistics hub, dispatching over 4 times the weekly average. The operation shipped more than 400 metric tons of medical supplies valued at more than $4.3 million in support of the cholera outbreak in Nigeria. The operation also shipped critical medicines to Afghanistan, trauma and surgical supplies to Syria and Yemen. Quick COVAX update for you. Peru has received.
So that's the only point I want from UN briefing on Ethiopia. So that's all I have for today, and I appreciate you coming back and spending time with me and commenting, sharing, subscribing to Concerned Citizens Media, so we can be the voice for the voiceless, so we can share global issues and the news-worthy items. So thank you, and I'm gonna, conclude by saying we need a different, a new leadership in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is bleeding under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and this bleeding has no ending sight. Ethiopians are suffering in multiple fronts: economically, in global isolation, ethnic tension, economic downturn, multiple command posts, war. So you can call it, the list is going on. The list is endless. So that's why we, concerned citizens media call on Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to consider resigning and opening the opportunity for a new leadership, that can handle the situation in a better way, instead of galvanizing Ethiopians for this unnecessary war, unnecessary bloodshed, and creating more economic downturn and global isolation never happened before. Ethiopia is losing all global connection by closing embassies, by uh, uh, using unnecessary rhetoric against the United States, against the European Union, saying things unnecessary, unrelated to the conflict. So we need a better leadership, and Abiy Ahmed should consider resigning, open up an opportunity for new leadership, for dialogue, reconciliation in that country, the United Nations, European Union, EU, uh, the United States, African Union must work toward that goal. Demand this current leadership to leave their post, and call for new leadership in that country that will end all the problems I mentioned: injustice, economic downturn, global isolation, inflation, hate against each other, uh, the lawlessness in that country, and many other problems. Many other problems will come to an end with a better, renewed leadership. So that's my closing. I will be back with other news and update. Thank you again for coming back. Please comment, share, subscribe to Concerned Citizens Media. So long, everyone, and be safe.